Generally speaking, words like masculine or handsome, we typically try to avoid when we're describing a female face, right? But the more I learn about facial impression these days, and the more I think about the individual traits and how they contribute to creating an overall impression, the more I realize that having masculine features doesn't mean that you look manly. Especially in modern Western beauty standards, having a mix of feminine and masculine features can actually make a look more striking and interesting. So in this video, we're going to talk about masculine versus feminine traits of the face and how these traits can impact our overall style. So I feel like I always have to be a little bit careful when I'm using the word masculine because, like I said, it's generally not taken as a compliment. And I think it's because we confuse the words manly and masculine. But having masculine features just means that there's a higher level of androgyny and gender neutrality created by certain features. It doesn't mean that you literally look like a man. And having an androgynous look is super in right now in modern Western beauty standards because they come across as more striking. So when we're talking about masculine versus feminine facial traits, we're more so referring to the level of androgyny and boldness that's created through certain features. And there's three main areas to consider, with the first area being the T-zone of the face. I've already brought this up in my bold versus light eyebrows video that a more developed T-zone can make the face appear more masculine. And in that video, we talked mostly about the thickness and the darkness of the eyebrows, but when we're talking about the T-zone, what we're really referring to is the bone structure. So how prominent the nose bridge is in terms of width and height, and also how prominent and protruded the brow bones are. And the thing about brow bones in relation to the eyes is that the more protruded and the more developed the brow bones are, the more deep set the eyes appear in contrast. And that means from the frontal view, the distance between the eyes and the eyebrows will appear quite narrow. That's why, even if the brow bones are not particularly prominent, if the position of the eyebrows is somewhat low and there's a short distance between the eyes and the eyebrows, the face will naturally appear slightly more masculine. Now, the second area to consider is the contrast level. And it's not that more men will have higher contrast in general or anything like that, but like I said, when we're talking about masculine versus feminine facial traits, what we're really referring to is the level of boldness, and the overall contrast level definitely plays a role in determining how striking or bold the face can come across as. We've used Kate Blanchett as an example before in the personal style roadmap video that shapes, proportions, angles wise, her facial features themselves actually add quite a bit of sharpness to her look, but it's really her overall coloring that softens everything. And the third area to consider is the U-zone, so the jawline and the chin. So the more square and prominent the jawline is and the more blunt the shape of the chin is, the more masculine the face can come across as, because these traits indicate higher testosterone levels, and these faces can come across as more assertive and confident. So these are traits that are not only considered desirable in men, but also in women in modern Western society. In Asian beauty standards, not as much. I know that things are definitely changing over there in recent years, but there's still a heavy focus around softness and rounded features as desirable traits for female faces. And then some of the other areas that we can also look at are features like the shape of the eyes, the nasal width, lip volume. But these features more so relate to how youthful or mature the face can come across as. Very round eyes, for example, can come across as more youthful because they resemble a baby's eyes more, whereas thinner lips are generally associated with more maturity. I do think that the angle of the eyes can have a role to play because upturned eyes tend to add more sharpness to the look and downturned eyes add a more relaxed vibe. So in relation to boldness, the angle of the eyes can have some impact. So there's definitely a bit of overlap between how masculine or feminine and how youthful or mature the face can come across as. And I think this explains the concept of the yin and yang balance really well, because the concepts of yin and yang sort of combine the ideas of facial gender and facial age together. Yang is angular, sharp, and long, which to me is a combination of masculine and mature features, whereas yin is soft, round, and short, and that's a mix of feminine and youthful. So there's definitely some parallels to these concepts. Now let's look at some celebrity examples. And just to be clear, we're not looking at how youthful or mature the face is today. We're just focusing on facial gender. So on the far end of the spectrum on the masculine side, we've got examples like Lady Gaga, Lea Michele, and Eva Mendes. These are faces with prominent noses, strong jawlines, and they've got pretty high contrast created by bold eyebrows as well. Eva Mendes more so in recent years because she used to have thinner brows in the 2000s. And I think these ladies really do a great job in incorporating some level of a striking element into their style. I mean, maybe not Lea Michele, because I don't think I've ever really been wowed by her style, at least not yet. But with Lady Gaga and Eva Mendes, their styles are very extravagant, very out there, and that complements the boldness found in their faces really well. And they kind of use this boldness as their strength in creating that all eyes on me kind of style. Makeup wise, I would say one area to be careful for these types of faces is the eyeshadow placement. Like I said, the eyelids are an area to look out for along with the T-zones because of the distance between the eyes and the eyebrows. And if you use dark eyeshadow colors above the crease line, that creates the illusion of the eyes being more receded and deeper set. And for these faces, because they already have a lot of features that make the face more masculine leaning, making the eyes appear deeper set can be a bit of an overkill. If any of you have watched my older video on Dua Lipa where I talk about why bolder styles of eye makeup work so well for her, you might be wondering, well, Dua Lipa has some level of androgyny found in her face, so why is it that she can wear bolder styles of eye makeup? And the difference is Dua Lipa's nose is relatively delicate. So she has a pretty short, narrow, and small nose. So even with makeup styles that make her eyes appear deeper set, the androgyny is not highlighted as much in her case. Jennifer Connelly is a similar example. She's got the bold eyebrows, quite an angular jawline, but a small and delicate nose. And we can see how dark and heavy styles of eye makeup doesn't appear quite as jarring on her. So I'd say Dua Lipa and Jennifer Connelly are good examples of faces that lean more masculine than feminine, but less towards the extreme. And this is actually represented quite well in their styles too. The two have very different styles, but they both have a bit of an edge to their style that works really well for that boldness and the striking image that the more masculine facial traits create for them. I'd say Uma Thurman and Cate Blanchett are both good examples of faces where the overall contrast level and the overall coloring kind of tones down the intensity of the facial features. Cate Blanchett, we've already talked about as an example of how she rocks those pantsuits in her light summer color palettes. And I say Uma Thurman is a similar case. She doesn't have much jawline prominence, but the nose, and especially in the tip and the nasal width, there's definitely some prominence. And the overall coloring really softens her look, but we can see how she looks bolder with just a darker hair color. And she pulls off these edgy and masculine styles quite well. When she wears styles that are more masculine, it just somehow works for her. Whereas if she was wearing feminine style of clothing, it's not really doing her anything. And it's also very evident in the roles that she plays, right? Like Pulp Fiction, Kill Bill. Her characters are always like very strong and have an edge to them. In my personal opinion, the jawline alone doesn't have a huge impact. If we look at Elle Fanning, for example, she has a pretty square and prominent jawline, but everything else she's pretty soft. Like her overall contrast is pretty soft, her nose is pretty delicate, there's a fair distance between her eyes and her eyebrows. And then if we compare her to her sister, Dakota Fanning, they're similar in their coloring and their contrast level, and the shape of the jawline is also similar, but Dakota definitely has a bit more prominence in her chin as well as in her nose, especially in the tip area. And we can see how Elle looks far more delicate, while Dakota looks a little bit more assertive and sharp. And I personally think that Dakota gets a little bit lost when she's styled in a way that's too soft. Like she still needs a little bit more edge. Whereas Elle, she does shine a lot more in hyper feminine and delicate styles of clothes. So as we can see, the result is a bit of a collective effect of all of the individual traits working together, and even small variances can make a pretty big impact on how the overall facial impression comes across us. And I say this because I don't want anybody watching this video to start nitpicking at their own individual features and use this as an opportunity to be harsh on yourselves about your appearance or feel down about it or anything like that. In the end, this is a very holistic approach and we can't just narrow it down to one single aspect. Just think about it as a way of learning more about ourselves and experimenting with different styles. And that's what facial analysis is all about, and that's what makes it fun, is because we're all so unique and different, and our style should reflect that. I'll see you in my next video, and until then, stay unique and stay gorgeous.